Okay, let's take a journey through the GRAMoire issue 2. So now I have this sacred purpose that I'm exploring, and it's really relating to time, and really even more specifically than that, the cycles of time, like the repetition and the pattern of them coming up over and over again, but then on grander, larger scales of time. So what's really come forward is the idea of a season, that there's 4 great seasons in a great year. So let me just pause for a second and see what I want to focus on talking about this, where I want to start with it. What I'm doing is I'm kind of looking at it as like a book report. I'm going to go through what I've done so far and then see what comes up so I can fill in these final 2 spheres. So let me just have a second. All right, so what was coming up for me was the dark moon. It was like a couple days before the dark moon, I started to go into looking at this page. And I was really feeling exhausted and worn out and just like drained, just like really heavy, like really, really heavy and pulled down. And so I had wrote recuperate because I realized that I was in a space, not only in the year, but in the month, the lunar cycle at that time, that was about recuperating, about surrendering. So it really brought me into this be here now moment, this present. And if I think about that, it makes me think about the sacredness of doing anything, that I'm not just like working and, taking care of stuff, and I'm not paying attention to the crazy wild wind that is blowing outside. Like to be sacred is to be dedicated and intentional with my every moment to see the bigger expansion of what's going on. I'm not just making a video and taking notes, but the wind is, howling outside, moving all of the leaves about, things are changing. So it really kind of gave me this realization of intention, or the lack of intention being the veil. So you have the intention to pay attention, intention to pay attention, and to me that is the sacredness. Or you are living in your shadow and out of anger, and then you have a veil between you and then the expanse of experience that's happening, all around you or of you. So I was really, everything kind of always works out in a very symbolic way. So when I say it, I'm very much limited in the perspective that I'm actually trying to share with you. Right now, my attention is being drawn here. Your word is your wand. So I've been using the runes, in my daily manifest, in my daily practice to get a message. And I'm starting to see a different kind of a message emerge from using tarot, which is more of an energetic expression. These runes are speaking to me more about like life force and ancestral DNA, these bonds and patterns of nature, that these laws of nature that have been neglected or veiled, not having attention and sacredness put upon them. So what this has done for me is to really kind of feel this witchy vibe of this season, that what I say and what I feel and I express and I share is some sort of wand. It's some sort of magic, some sort of imprint or observation for the quantum realm to return those synchronicities to me. Remember, I was getting a lot of synchronicities that were coming up from doing this octopus page, from the elements, from the numbers. Like it was very capturing for me. So I feel like that's what the work is, that it's very capturing, because I'm sharing something that is unique in the way that it's being done, and there's a certain amount of people that are listening to it, and it's magnetizing us together. And so as we all start to see this pattern coming together of these synchronicities, it seems like we create even more of them. So for me, it's just a matter of observation. So I have these ideas. This observe word that I put inside this sphere is what I'm always doing, even with all of the seed words and even the page itself. I'm observing these pattern recognitions that I'm getting in my own life, and that I'm intuiting or sensing that other people are having, and then I'm assigning meaning to them, or I'm evaluating the meaning that other people have assigned to them, and then I kind of correlate all of this information into ideas on how I might be able to better evolve myself. And I feel like if I have a rebirth, like if I evolve and grow my limited perspective of life, then I am able to help rebuild a stronger bond between other people so that they can then mirror that and do the same. So this is sort of like what my great work is, like this whole idea of what the quantum memoir is. This is the idea that I'm trying to put together and share with other people, that their word is their wand, and that the use, the sacredness, the intention and awareness that is put behind it is what they're creating. So that's kind of what this page is about. It's bringing together the intention and ideas into periods of seasons of time, that instead of, always statically working the same way, even though nature is flowing and changing, that we combine how we work and approach with the flow of nature, instead of just being machines drilling out over and over again, that we recognize that there's, valleys and peaks that we're going through in the natural world. So I'm going to slow down for a second as I approach this idea into the wild. So I've come out into the wild, and this idea has really triggered something from watching a movie documentary called Into the Wild, where a young man just kind of gave up all of his identity and his money, and he went out into the wild, and he stumbled upon a school bus. And I will just leave it there so I don't ruin it for you in case you want to watch it. But it's a lot like the life that I've been living, where I've stepped out of being a businesswoman and having, a such and such car and doing all of these things, to just really being a wild woman out in the woods and feeling like, wow, it's my best life. But then at the same time, there's so much that I feel like I could be doing better, or I could be doing more, like in my own self-care. Like, I've not made it yet, but yet I'm living my best life. It's kind of confusing. So it was a very triggering for me this past, I was saying in my last video, in this dark moon phase that we just had. This time period, I was really going through a lot of triggers and a lot of shadows, and I was really seeing this connection with this water video podcast that somebody else had shared with me, this living structure of water and it being consciousness. So I was having all of these, kind of shadow memories and things that I felt like I was letting go of. And it was really all due to the fact that I have chosen to go live in the woods with my husband and not specifically participate in anything that we feel like might bring us karmic measure. To really be very intentional and sacred with the choices that we make with our time and energy. And it is sucked a lot of comfort out of our lives, to where we are carrying water. We have to heat water up to bathe. We don't have the modern amenities that we would like to have, which feels a bit like suffering. But we recognize that we're doing it in a sacred way. Like, we're intentionally making this choice or sacrifice to be in this position, because we feel like there's these blank steps that we're going to get to move into in this new cosmic season that is going to make sense of, of everything that we've been doing since 2017, when we went into the tiny house. So what I'm doing is, with these as an example to show you, I'm taking the information that I gather from here, and then I'm blending it with what my perception and my experience is at this time. And then I'm just kind of like journaling notes of those experiences and things that I consume. And then I'm making a snapshot, a intention, a charm or a wish, a dedication, a benediction to my quantum field that I can really just sit with, either images or words, and have this be my impression of right now, that this is what I'm projecting into my future. So I'm really being drawn to these two empty spheres, wondering what I might put here. And I'm seeing to read this. when conditions are right for the accomplishment of a crucial action. Okay, so originally what I was going to call this purpose is I was going to call it Kairos, if that's how you pronounce this, which is an aspect of time that is things at the most, ripest, most opportune time. And how I was coming to that was that, oh, I thought I would have everything by the summer solstice, that I would be reaping my rewards here. And then I recognized, well, I didn't. I mean, I guess maybe I did to an aspect, but not to the degree that I had hoped, that this is a false idea of how soon something would reap, and it's not literal. This is all symbolic. You could reap things in any one of these phases, but specifically to recognize that the kairos of time may not be specifically what you expect it to be. There might be a fluidity and an intuition that you have to sense when your seeds might sprout or when they might need to be harvested. So what I was coming to is I'm seeing this Kairos time right here. Oh, and the rain is coming now. Kairos. So this is the ripeness, right? Ripeness is really knowing when is that ripeness. You can't pick the fruit too soon, and if you wait too long, then you just have a whole nother problem. So it's really understanding that when you go into the wild, I'm just intuiting this right now, I don't know what I'm going to say, but when you go into the wild, or as I have, I've recognized that there's a whole different kind of time, that the time that I thought existed when I would have to get up at a certain time and go to work and clock in and drive home during rush hour traffic, that kind of sense of time, like, oh, what are you doing this weekend, doesn't exist for me anymore. After I've been living for a full year, and I'm getting ready to start another solar cycle here in the sacred woods, away from that colonialization on the most part, I see a whole different type of time, which to me is this kairos, that you're really seeing nature and how it has these different cycles where some things bloom earlier in the spring, other things bloom, in the late summer, that it's not such a cookie cutter black and white type of situation, that it is very much something that you should be paying attention to, that you should be dedicating your attention to, because then you can start to see these archetypal patterns playing out in the manifest world in your reality. So the broom, let me talk about the broom. That just jumped out at me. The broom came up yesterday in a tarot reading. My friend Michelle came over and Bodhi and I did a graveyard spread. She had this beautiful deck of cards, and it had a suggestion to do a graveyard spread, which is a transition spread. And so both Bodhi and I got the broom card, and we both got it in the exact same position. That's interesting, because it's talking about clearing your energy, to really clear your field and your space. I wanted to put that symbol in the ground sphere, that this is my sacred home. This land, whether I live in the bus or I live in the shipping container, or if I live in the tent or under a tree, it is my sacred space that I'm able to recuperate from my past life and to build this new rebirth of my new life. So I'm going to put new life right here. That just really stood out to me. So that's what the symbol of the broom is helping me do. So the broom really is a sacred item for me, because I have this gorgeous one, and home is what I'm creating. This is the purpose of all of the work that I'm doing, not just a home for my own body, but for my friends and my tribe, for my community, for humanity itself. It just keeps overlapping into these greater seasons. So that's my exploration of the GRAMoire. And after this one, I'll probably take some more notes And then I'll move into whatever this one's gonna tell me. Looks exciting.